Welcome to the Big One podcast. I'm very excited. This is the podcast where we talk to lots of different people about their lives and what they get up to and why they choose to go down the avenues they go down. And at the end of the podcast, the big thing about the Big One is that we have our pen. Here's Big One. And everybody gets to leave a little message in the Big One's journal. And we get to sort of see what messages they want to share with the world. So that is the challenge. Today, I'm very excited. I've got Anna, and Anna's currently at work. Hi, Anna.
Hi.
How are you?
Good, thanks.
Good. Now, Anna, do you want to just explain to people what it is that you do currently? What do you do for work?
Okay, so I work for the NHS. I currently work for Dorset Healthcare. I've worked for them for 6 years. And I'm district nursing lead for East Dorset. So I manage the community nurses in and around East Dorset.
Thank you so much. And I'm very excited when we had the opportunity to talk to you today, because I think it's very apt for what's happening in the world right now. And I think it's very interesting to talk to someone who has been in a healthcare profession. How long have you been working in the healthcare sector?
So almost 30 years. So about 28 years. I started training as a nurse 28 years ago. So
wow,
makes me feel old.
What was it that got you interested in pursuing a career in healthcare?
So my mum and both my grannies were nurses, so I guess you could say it's in the blood. And really from quite a young age, I pretty much knew it was what I wanted to do. So I've been lucky to follow my dream, I guess.
That's really, really interesting that it's something that you just knew it was an area that you wanted to get into quite early on.
Yeah, definitely. I think I even remember playing, nurses and doctors as little kids as well.
Oh. So was that kind of the main kind of thing that you pursued sort of from school through and then sort of further education?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, one of the care homes that we now, I manage and oversee with the community nurses going in is the same care home that I did my work experience in when I was 13, which is quite weird. It's changed quite a lot, but so even back then.
That's amazing. Especially that you found. I don't think there's many people. I mean, I might be wrong, but I don't think there's many people that find something that they get very into and that they want to keep pursuing throughout their lives from such an early age. And it's lovely to hear that you found that very, very early on in your life and being able to keep pursuing that in different ways right up to now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love my job. I still get to go out and see patients and work clinically as a nurse, as well as doing the sort of management aspects of it. But yeah, no, I do. I'm truly lucky to be able to do the job that I do.
So just to sort of describe to people who might not know how that career started. So you go through school and then do you have to go to uni?
So when I did my training, we didn't have to go to uni, but people do now, and they only offer it as a degree. So it's a 3-year course, which is part uni-based and then part, placement-based. So their placements may well be anywhere throughout the hospital and also in the community, obviously, which is where I work now.
Interesting. So have you always been based in Dorset and sort of focusing and just kind of been doing it around here, or have you been elsewhere doing it as well?
So I went to London aged 18 and trained up in London, and I stayed up in London for 15 years. And then when I got married and had children, I decided I absolutely didn't want to bring my children up in London. I wanted to bring them up in Dorset. So I came back, which was really lovely. And I think it's when you're young, you don't really appreciate just how beautiful Dorset is and how lucky we are to have amazing coastline and beautiful countryside. but actually as an adult you do, and that's what you want for your own children. So yeah, it's very much why we came back.
That's really interesting, actually. So if we, yeah, because I can imagine, I mean, you can tell me that it's a completely different lifestyle from London to here. It's kind of like chalk and cheese in a lot of ways. Did you find that as well in work as well, with say your job in or doing things in London to doing things down here?
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, as an 18-year-old, I think you like new challenges, and everything's really exciting, and it's crazy busy and noisy and smelly, but it's good fun. And the work's different. I mean, I trained at St George's. It's the second biggest hospital in Europe. It's massive, and so the opportunities were absolutely amazing. And I'd recommend that opportunity to anybody, but actually give me Dorset any day.
What is it about this area that you love?
Well, particularly working in the community, you get to go out and you go and see patients in their own home, and it means, again, driving through beautiful countryside, and it's lovely.
That's, yeah, I think as well, this area you kind of forget, especially if you're working in a city, that you see all the city walls all the time, and it's quite enclosed in a lot of ways, and you don't appreciate till you're in an area where it's quite open. And it was one of the things I loved when I had a job where I was driving, to just enjoy the countryside, enjoy the open space that we have. I thought it quite interesting that you mentioned that some of your work involves actually visiting people at home, and then other parts might be in hospital or something like that. What's different about visiting someone at home in comparison to hospital? So
community nursing is very, very different from hospital work in the sense that you're on your own predominantly. So you're, in a hospital, if you're in a difficult situation, then you can call someone for help and support. Whereas when you're working in the community or on your own, you're sort of making risk assessments without even thinking about it really, but going into somebody's home, and you're recognising that you're a guest in their home. I think in hospitals, we tend to be able to dictate a little bit more about what people do and don't do, whereas at home there has to be a degree of acceptance that they will do what they want to do, which is not always what we'd recommend, and that's what we have to accept. But equally, you go into some very, very interesting environments. Not long ago, I had to try and remove some geese so that I could get to a patient's house. And they were, quite noisy and quite aggressive. So we have all those sort of added challenges, which I think people don't think about, because some of the areas we cover here in East Dorset are very rural, and therefore you do come into contact with all sorts of different animals. So
I think that's, you mentioned there that, there's a big difference between when you're going to someone's home that you are a guest. And so kind of, how that plays out in how you handle situations and how you handle people, because, you are walking into their environment. So it must be quite challenging, because you don't know necessarily what you're going to walk into or what you're going to see when you get there.
No, absolutely. And I think a lot of the patients, we care for many, many years, and we almost become like, an extended part of their family, because they're, seeing us sometimes every day. But you're walking into situations at other times where, no healthcare professional has ever been into that home. So, there is a certain degree of not knowing.
I love that. I love that. That especially if it's a long-term patient, that you can build quite a relationship with them, that you see them, like you said, you tend to them for quite a long period of time, and so you can get quite a close relationship with the people that you visit.
Absolutely, and I think that's been even more pertinent in the last couple of months with COVID-19, that there's a lot of people who we will have been the only people that they will have seen, and therefore our work is more important than ever, and often we're the only person keeping an eye on that patient.
So does that mean then that you had to stop seeing a lot of people when COVID-19 and the lockdown started, or were you still able to see those patients?
No, we're still seeing an awful lot of patients, and there's very few that we're not seeing. Most of those that we're not seeing are at their request, because they are concerned about the risk of us coming into their home. But no, we're not leaving anybody vulnerable. We're supporting those that need us.
So do you have to take any precautions when you go and visit someone that maybe you didn't have to do before this started?
Yeah, absolutely. We have to wear a surgical mask, gloves and aprons to every single patient now. So we've been really, really lucky with the good weather, because we have to put everything on outside the patient's home and then take it all off outside the patient's home. And we've been so lucky. I think we've only had a couple of days of rain, so not having to stand around in nasty weather, which has been good.
I must admit, I have been shocked with how good the weather has been since the lockdown started. And like you said, there's been only a few days where there has been any rain.
It has been a real blessing.
Yeah. So do you have to specialize in any specific area, or do you cover like a large lot of medical needs as a district nurse or community nurse?
Yeah, so we're real generalists, so we pretty much do everything. I think historically, sort of community nurses and district nurses were seen as, popping in for a cup of tea and perhaps doing the odd dressing and things, but we do so much in the community. They're highly skilled. I manage nearly 70 staff, and they are absolutely phenomenal, and have worked just unbelievably hard over the last 3 months, and just been adaptable and flexible, and which they always were, but I think everyone has just stepped up massively, which has been amazing.
Yeah, it sounds like with what you guys have to do, that you already have to be quite flexible, because you don't know what you're going to see when you walk in, or what situation is going to be. And then when you add COVID on that as well, you're then sort of stretching, okay, we need to be even more flexible, trying to work new systems in and things like that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you do have to be a fairly sort of confident individual to work in the community anyway. And actually have an amazing member of staff start literally the week of lockdown. Just has absolutely hit the ground running. But I think, bless her, she certainly didn't come into community nursing expecting that to happen. But yeah, she's been amazing, as everyone has. I think we've been very well supported by the trust. We've been really lucky in that we haven't had issues with PPE. People have had their concerns, which is normal. But they've just cracked on and they've worked really hard. So really proud of everyone.
That's fantastic. And it's great to hear as well how, that you've even had staff coming in at the very beginning and really kind of jumping into it. And it sounds like your team has just really kind of embraced this moment and trying to work as best as they can with it. How is it? Because in your position, you're kind of managing what, sort of 70 members of staff that are all out trying to do their bits in the community and look after people. How do you manage that in your position?
I'm a pretty calm individual, so a lot of reassurance and keeping the communication. I mean, certainly in the very early days, there was, Anna, can I just ask you this? Anna, can I just check that with you? Anna, is this right? And I was like, absolutely, that's what I'm here for, and just supporting and reassuring them. I've got 3 team leaders who work under me, Hannah, Tracy and Lauren, and they're absolutely brilliant. Just got them nominated for an award because they just have worked phenomenally hard in supporting their teams. So just yeah, everyone's just stepped up really. Nobody sort of expected this or knew it was going to happen, but they've just run with it, which is brilliant. And, you know, ultimately we need to still provide care for the patients regardless of what's going on, and that's what's happened. So
yeah, it was one of my questions was, you know, did you have a lot of time to prepare? Because we knew it was going to come in some form or another, but I don't think anybody quite knew, okay, this is now really, really here. And I don't know if you guys had any forewarning, okay, guys, you better get ready because this is coming.
I think absolutely we were doing some planning, but I think it was bigger than anyone ever thought it was going to be. So I think because we've been adaptable and flexible, we've been, you know, working through it as things, you know, as new information's come to light, and you know, the guidance that's been delivered from the government we've been implementing. So but yeah, I think if anyone had said to us 4 months ago, this is what's, or 6 months ago maybe, this is what's going to happen, I think no one would quite have believed it. So.
And what's it like now? Because obviously at the beginning, maybe 3 months ago, when, you know, lockdown was just about rolling out, you know, everything for a lot of people kind of changed within a day, and it was kind of this very, very abrupt shift. And everybody was, you know, trying to grasp what was going on. Whereas now I think we've kind of got used to that a bit more, but then there's different challenges that come because of that, and trying to kind of work through it. How has that affected you and now looking sort of 3 months past everything?
I mean, I think it's trying to establish a new norm, because I think it's recognising that we're not going to go back to how we were, and certainly not going to go back to how we were for a significant amount of time. And I think in the early days it was a little bit of, let's just get through today and let's see what tomorrow brings and let's see what next week brings. And I think now it is about, we're looking at, you know, reinstating services that we perhaps had to put on hold for a little while, but we're also looking at how we've worked over the last 3 months and looked at going forward, how usable those are, you know, long term. So all the guys have laptops that they work from. Ordinarily they would all have come in at lunchtime and done a handover and discussed any sort of pertinent issues that were going on, but obviously we've had to stop that because of social distancing. But we're using so much more, as everyone is, you know, Zoom, MS Teams, all sorts of things, to ensure that, you know, staff are still supported, and they're still getting the information that they need, and just looking at sort of moving forward and establishing sort of new norms of working. So
yeah, like you said, it's trying to get a new mindset. Potentially things are not going to go back to the way they were, but we're creating a new norm through this situation. Especially because I think one thing that I've noticed coming through this is the fact that you can't necessarily plan very far ahead because you don't know what's going to happen. So you do have to kind of make a little bit up or figure things out or feel things out as you're going along, and you know, because anything can change very quickly.
Yeah, we've definitely learned that over the last couple of months.
And so how does that have an impact on your home life as well in everything that's happened, or has it sort of stayed quite leveled?
So yeah, it's definitely had an impact on my home life. I've worked probably more than I ever have done, but I think there was an expectation, an acceptance, should I say, by my family that would happen. I have son with special needs. He's really, really struggled with it, and when he wasn't able to go to his special needs centre, that was quite tricky, but he's now back. But equally, that's been tricky as well. So I think, I think, you know, everybody, I think everyone everywhere has been affected by it, in terms of, you know, Asha hasn't been able to go to school, which in some ways she's loved, and in other ways she's really missing not seeing her friends. My husband's furloughed, so yeah, Interesting times.
Yeah. One thing that I wanted to ask you about, maybe just changing tack just a little bit. I was trying to sort of do a little bit of research before we had our interview today. I noticed on your LinkedIn profile that you also work for the Marie Curie Cancer Care Trust. And obviously that comes with a whole load of thoughts and things that sort of come along with that, especially because in my own experience, you know, I've had family members who've had cancer and some have survived and some haven't. Did you choose to sort of work with them? Was that a choice that you made, or did that just kind of come upon you?
So when we moved back down to Dorset, I worked for Marie Curie, and I worked for them for 8 years in a variety of different roles. They provide, you know, their care staff provide, you know, incredible, you know, care to people at end of life. But I've worked for Dorset Healthcare for 6 years, and certainly a large part of the care that we still provide in the community now is end of life care. You know, that enable people to be able to die at home with their families. And I think that's been something that's been really, really pertinent in the last couple of months is that those patients that we have looked after at home that have been dying from COVID have actually been able to be with their families, which obviously in hospitals we know that that's been very, very limited in terms of the time that they could be together. So, yeah.
So one thing that I kind of thought about with that, which must be quite a challenge. I mean, I don't know if I could do it, working with people who maybe have a long-term health struggle that you know potentially are going to die from it. And being that person who helps them through that journey, you know, whether it's pain relief or just making them as comfortable as you can, you know, because they're fighting something that is, you know, it's really hard because it's going to kill them at some point. And how do you make sure that you are able to look after yourself so that you can look after the patients? Because it must take, I would have thought it would take a strain on me. If I was doing it, it would take a strain on me, and I don't know if I would be able to kind of deal with that.
Yeah, there are times where it is exceptionally hard, and I think the day that you stop feeling anything and you don't react to losing a patient in any way is the day that actually you need to think about another career. But actually there's something, there's a real privilege in caring for somebody at the end of their life, because actually if you can know that you made even just a fraction of a difference to make that last person's, you know, weeks, days, hours, you know, on this earth the best that it can possibly be, and that they can be with their family and they can be comfortable and they can be pain-free. Actually it's a great, you know, it's like an opportunity to be able to really, really make a difference. And ultimately, you know, as a nurse, that's what you want to do. You want to be able to care. You want to be able to make the best of a situation. And obviously, it's a really hard situation when somebody's dying. But knowing that you go away from a situation when somebody's died and know that you have left lasting memories with that family, that actually they can remember only the good things in terms of, and I've you know, been fortunate enough to be in situations where incredibly close families, and actually, you know, they're being able to laugh and joke about the fun times they've had and the holidays they've been on and silly things that happened. It's just such a special time for them. And you know that if you're enabling that calm, sort of peaceful environment to allow those things to happen, it's the most fulfilling. And I have I'm trying to think of the right word, but palliative care is my real passion, because I think we only have one chance to get it right. You know, as community district nurses, we change dressings, we give injections, we do huge numbers of different things. But I just feel with palliative care and end of life care, we only have one chance to get it right, and we can make such a big difference.
Thank you. I think I loved what you said about you found it quite a privilege that you could go in and help the journey of, and like you said, it's not just the individual, it's the family as well that might be there and experiencing this moment, that you can help set the tone and help get to that point. I know from my family's experience, when my mum passed away, that was very much the case, that, she had cancer and it was at home, and it was because of the people that came in to make her comfortable and to really help. It helped us on that journey because of the tone that was set, that we felt that she could pass away in peace, and to find that. So thank you very much. Thank you for sharing, those thoughts today. I appreciate it. So just kind of like changing up a little bit, maybe to just take it to a lighter place. But so obviously this is what you do for work, but you have got, how many children have you got? 2?
Yeah.
And I know you're very, very supportive of what their passions are and what they want to do. Could you just describe a little bit? I know Dave, and I spoke to Dave actually on this podcast about his work with Asha and kind of how that all happened. From your perspective, being the parent, how did that transpire for you? Because obviously, this is a different perspective of, sort of Dave shared with me his kind of, he wanted to get into it, and then kind of Asha approached him and they kind of started this journey. How did this happen for you?
Yeah, so Dave used to teach Asha many, many years ago, and I think she was quite shy, and always loved to sing, and was quite musical, and we certainly noticed that when she was doing something musical, it would really help her. So my son is 2.5 years older, and he is autistic, and he's just the most beautiful boy, but his behaviour can be quite challenging, and it really affected Asha when she was younger, and to some extent still does now. And so music was really good therapy for her. And when Dave started teaching her, suddenly this confidence just grew and grew and grew, which was amazing. She, this was what she wanted to do, and so Dave offered, when she left the school, to just do some mentoring with her. So we would get together, and he would do some support with her, and essentially things have just grown. And when I think how far she's come in a couple of years, she now plays the piano fluently, and has sung in front of 1,000 people, and has released songs and stuff. It's just amazing. So yeah, I'm enormously proud of Sam, my son, and Asha. But yeah, Dave's been an enormous support to Asha, and really helped her. So.
I love how you mentioned that she was quite quiet, and she found something that she was able to develop, but also found confidence in herself. And I think that's a lovely kind of thing to see, that journey, that she's at the point now where she's released singles and she's done an album, and she gets on stage and performs. And I mean, I know when I was younger, and I've sort of got a lot more confidence now, but when I was sort of 12, 13, there's no way I was going to do anything like that.
No, definitely not. No, I think that's the thing. And actually, Dave and I quite often say, goodness, we sort of forget how young she is. When she stood on Westminster Bridge when she was only 12 and sang in front of 1,000 people, it was just mind blowing. So, yeah.
And one thing I love as well is that she, from such a young age, from growing that confidence, she also has, from what I've seen, a desire to share with other people. She gives a lot back, and a number of those singles have been charity singles. They've raised money for different things, and so there's this kind of great sense that she recognizes there's a talent, but also she wants that to help other people in a different way than what you do. in a sense.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, yeah. And I think it means so much more when there's a bit of a message behind it. And this latest song is just absolutely stunning. It's just beautiful.
Can we talk a little bit about the new song? Because I think it's got a great message behind it, but also it touches home for you, because from what I understand, she's raising money for the NHS through this new single.
Yeah. And I think combined with, she was seeing I was doing a lot of hours, she was seeing stuff on the news, obviously at the peak of the sort of pandemic when, there were hundreds and hundreds of people dying every day, and these very sad stories coming out. And, she has such a big heart, because for those words to come is phenomenal.
So she wrote the song and composed it as well?
Yeah.
So this is sort of, this is her kind of interpreting all the feelings and thoughts coming from her experience, sort of, like you said, from watching things on the news, social media, but then also the fact that you are working in it.
Yeah. Yeah,
and
absolutely.
the song is called Be Strong.
Yeah.
So it's almost, I don't want to kind of put words into Ash's mouth. For me, it's almost like a message to you, because she's not working in it, but she sees you working in it, and maybe, like you said, the hours that are being put into it, and it's almost like she's sort of saying, hey, this is for you, and this is a message that you can keep going, and because we don't know when or how long this is going to take, or if this is a more permanent change, and this is something that I think everybody's grasping with at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, again, the images on the TV about, the ITU nurses who just worked exceptionally hard and really had to deal with very, very challenging situations. And so I think it was written with me in mind, but I think with those images of, those people at the end of their tether, really, and just exhausted. So just about hanging on in there. And I think, that's such a good message with anything.
It's something that we can all take on board and just kind of think, we've made it this far and we can keep going, and that's a great message to have. And I think it's more powerful because it's something that we're all experiencing, and we all experience at different stages as well. And those moments where we don't feel like we can keep going, or something that we're struggling with, and just the idea that you can keep going, and the whole message behind the song of being strong is quite powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, even for those people who've been shielding at home, they've been very lonely, and so yeah, just almost the same message to them in terms of hang on in there.
And even when we were not in lockdown, I was always amazed at the commitment that you had to helping Asha pursue the passion, because it's not necessarily like some kids getting into different passions and different things that they enjoy, and maybe it's a little bit more localized, like if you're in a sports team or something like that. But you working with Dave, or Asha working with Dave, you guys have been around the country doing stuff sort of everywhere. So I always am amazed at the effort that you guys do in helping support Asha with this.
Yeah, I'm often the driver. So Dave taught Asha the guitar in the back of the car on the way to and from a London trip one time. We wrote a song. I'm even down as a songwriter on one of the songs, which is very exciting. Yeah. So, but do you know what? It's amazing. The opportunities that Asha's had have been absolutely brilliant, and it's great to be there as part of the journey. Really, have some really good laughs.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like you're helping Asha to pursue her passion, and you're helping her to give back and to do something that's really, she's really passionate in, that you found your own passion in quite early on as well. And it's great to see that kind of continue.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I think, you know, there's a lot of parents out there who'd be saying, no, you shouldn't pursue a career in music and you need to do this. And, you know, whilst she continues to do her schoolwork and that has to continue, ultimately it's about, you know, I got to you know, live my dream in terms of doing the job that I've always wanted to do and still continuing to do it. So I feel I should support her to do the same.
And I think as well, you know, you mentioned that you had, obviously you had the influence of other family members who were in the nursing profession and things, but you started to explore that from what you were saying about 12 or 13, when you were volunteering and experiencing little things yourself and getting a feel for it. And you know, that's something that Asha can do, and explore that beside her school as well. It's something that I've done when I've had stuff that I've been interested in, that you do. It's good to explore and it's good to try things. And when you do find something that you can latch onto because you've done that experimenting, and you know, there's no reason why she can't do that alongside, you know, the traditional sort of school and stuff.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely.
Well, I've really, really appreciated speaking to you today. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy day.
That's okay. No, lovely to talk to you.
So normally in person, I would be there and I would give you the Big One journal to leave a message with Big One. But obviously we can't do that right now. So I will have to meet you at some point, hopefully in the near future. And we'll do that, and I'll let you write in there. Do you think you could just share with us now what you had planned to write in the Big One?
I think it would be something along the lines of, you know, living every day as if it was your last. And I think if the last 3 months has taught us nothing, we absolutely never know what's around the corner. And you know, life is precious and it is for living. Don't hold on to arguments. My mum always taught me never go to bed on an argument. It's the best piece of advice she gave me.
I love that. I love what you said about life being precious and sort of grabbing it when you have it. That's really special. So thank you so much.
My pleasure. Really lovely to talk to you.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Big One podcast with me, Kaylee Hillier. If you want to keep following the podcast, please think of subscribing to us. We'd love to have you along for our Big One journey. We also have a website, which is thebig-one.com. And we're also on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as Big One as well. So you can find us all over there, and keep coming with our journey.